So I'm going to open with a quote from you. An abundant life begins with a generous heart.
Yep.
Energy realignment helps us return to the original seed point of innocence in which our hearts knew nothing but love and abundance.
Yep.
Um, is this the birthright codes that you refer to in your work?
Um, I believe I'm kind of referencing the seed point as
Okay.
that idyllic aspect of ourselves that dreams the infinite possibilities.
All right, great. Tell us about that. Tell us about this.
So, so this seed point idea, I don't know if it's kind of going around right now, but
Mhm.
we have all of this energetic healing that can occur in the quantum field, right? So we bring in healing and it doesn't need to be over lengthy periods of time. We sort of pull out time and we kind of come back to this one aspect of ourselves where we're completely tapped into what we might consider our higher selves. We're completely tapped into um, sort of the quantum possibilities of our existence. And we do so not from a place of being blocked. We do so from a place of feeling open. So I'm sure, I don't know, I can throw it to you and Gary. Has there ever been a time in your life where you have just felt you could conquer the world? You kind of knew what you were going to do. You were tapped into that divine purpose and you were doing it from a place of excitement and not fear. That's
Oh,
what the seed
absolutely.
point is.
Hmm. Okay. And so is that a just a question I want to ask there. So is the seed point, it's something that we're born with, or is it something that we develop?
Ooh, let's go down the rabbit hole. I
Rabbit hole.
believe,
We used to have a show
yeah.
called Down the Rabbit Hole. So that's
Oh,
that's
that
what
would have been perfect. I can only talk from my personal experience. And so my
sure.
understanding based on my pre-mortal life memories, what I remember I have pretty vivid memories of where I came from. It's a city of light. And
Yeah.
everybody there was tapped into this infinite thread of understanding. So I like to say it's the quantum field. It's this
Mm.
thread of perfect knowledge, right? So it's a supportive thread. We understand that experiences and lessons aren't here to harm us, they're here to grow us. They're here to create consciousness. And so when I think that we were born incarnated into this third dimensional reality, I don't believe we were supposed to be disconnected from it. I don't believe that we were supposed to come here without this with this feeling of complete separation from self and source and spirit and all those things that are supposed to guide us in life. And yet so many people feel lost or stuck or sort of just pigeonholed to their reality without, kind of that infinite knowledge. And so I believe we were supposed to be born with the ability after clearing and going through our karmic contracts and doing our life lessons with the ability to return to it. But I don't know if it's quite turned out the way that maybe it was supposed to be. I believe we were supposed to have it, and it's not necessarily easy to reconnect with.
And do you do you feel that there's a reason that we lost that connection?
Again, from my personal experience, I also remember being born,
Hmm.
and I liken it to that feeling of disconnect that it was really traumatic. I don't remember the physical process. I remember my first thoughts, and my first thoughts were, this isn't right. What do you mean I came here? I was supposed to be carrying all my life lessons. I'm supposed to be able to hear my higher self, and I can't. It was almost
Right.
very traumatizing.
Mm.
And so I think that trauma is what creates our first, and then it's trauma. These blocks start to build, and we're not really conditioned to address energetic trauma blocks. We're just supposed to plow through. We're supposed to, exist in
Hmm.
this reality um, by being a hardworking and the constructs of all of this. And I think that keeps us from our connection. It's just, I think that was, I think it's from birth. I think it's just this place is not infinitely supportive of,
Right.
of divine connection. It's a lot of
Well, I
Um,
work.
think that there's elements in it that may give that illusion to it. But do you think that that separation that happened, or that disconnect that happened, or the perception of the disconnection happened so that it gave us something to strive towards?
Yeah. I think the awakened person, yes.
Yeah.
I think subconsciously, when we get really stuck, our subconscious is calling out to us to say there's something more we need to reconnect to. But I think that happens over time in life. I think, yeah, I mean, don't we
That's
all
part of the
crave
evolutionary journey, right?
Yeah, I think naturally we all crave connection.
Yeah.
And so it just depends on where we seek that out. Sometimes it's connection to things that aren't healthy, and then sometimes it's connection to things that we actually need, which is, our inner guidance.
Mm-hmm.
But primarily, though, are you really describing that connection to source?
The infinite one, maybe.
Sure.
I think it's to
However,
everything.
however we want to actually call it.
Right.
Um, but again, if that is something that is innate within us, and we are born with that, then at what point did we, is it trained out of us as from an infant into being a toddler, being a pre-adult, being a teen? Is that born, kind of learned or bred out of us? Because again, if we look at generationally, then my parents didn't understand this, my grandparents didn't understand this. There's been many people we've talked to, it was their grandparents that actually brought them into that light of understanding who they were, and the abilities that they had, with that they were born with. But what we've seen, and or with all the clients that we've worked with and such, is that it just it just starts a cascading effect. It's like, well,
Right.
this generation doesn't know, so they can't pass it on to this generation, so they can't pass it on to this generation. And it almost seems like it's something on purpose.
I would agree with that. Do you have a belief as to why you believe it's on purpose?
Um, because it is so natural. I mean, I know that from the youngest point in my life that I remember, that I was born for something that, I always thought, is this all there is? Is this all I'm about? There's more. There has to be more.
So when did that happen for you? When was that something you always felt, or was there a moment where you went, oh, there has to be more?
Yeah. That's a good question. I can actually say it was when I was very young.
Okay.
And but to a degree, it was kind of trained out of me.
Okay.
It's like, that's not normal.
By your
You need
environment, like
by
your
my
family
environment,
system?
by my parents, by siblings, and
Right.
such like that. That's no, no, no. You're just too sensitive. You're too this. You're too that. And so,
Yeah.
okay, so conform, 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 conform.
Yeah.
And we've seen that with a lot of the people that we've interviewed who are mystics, and have these great abilities. And again, they're saying, yeah, my mother was just like, but my grandmother or my great grandmother, whatever, is the one who said, no, it's not, there's something there.
Right.
And, but that's, I don't know at this point how common that is, but we know from the work that we've done, most of the people that we've dealt with don't understand that. They're like, I can do what? Well, you can do this. It's like, well, how? I don't understand this. I see it in the movies, or I read it in books, but I thought they were just stories.
Right.
No,
Right.
they're not. There was one point where I don't remember who we were talking to, and she classifies herself as a witch.
Okay.
And I'm like, well, that's fascinating. And but if you think about that term witch, one, the first thing that comes into mind is what we see on TV.
Right.
And then
Like
from
the
there,
broom and the cauldron and that.
yeah,
Right.
exactly. And she had neither of them.
Oh,
And
bummer.
so disappointed.
Yeah.
I'm going to interview a witch. But and it was her grandmother that helped her discover her abilities.
Right.
Um, but at the same time, in our discussions, though, we're like, so, well, witches had a very bad rep, if you want to say, back
Right.
from medieval times and such, being burned,
Right.
being drowned, and such like that. And it's just like, so you have again that the the government at the time, or the ruling class, whatever, suppressed the people
Mm-hmm.
who had the ability, to where then they just kind of went into the closet and
Mm-hmm.
just like, listen, I know I can do this, but I can't tell anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Which means if I can't tell anybody, I can't help anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Which is exactly all. That's all witchcraft is, really, was the ability to be able to help people in a different way, a different
Right.
modality.
Right.
So we look at centuries and centuries of that depression of those abilities, and the
Right.
punishment of them is that we're going to put, I mean, even the free thinkers, were put away in the
Mm-hmm.
dungeon, or beheaded, or hung, or burned, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
And so so that's where I'm kind of thinking, is that we are actually born with this, but we've been taught to suppress it.
Absolutely.
You agree?
Absolutely. I think there's this whole movement that's happening right now, just sitting with clients who come in and they look for a normal reading. And then at the end, they'll find me again and they'll go, I think I can do something different. I feel like I have these empathic abilities. I can see my grandma too. And so it's like this awakening when they realize there's someone out there normalizing this, kind of woo-woo existence.
Right.
And then you realize that so many of us have these other clair abilities that we don't really tap into, because we are taught that the only ones that matter are the 5 that we're born with. Yet we all understand that we have a gut intuition. You walk up to somebody and you're like, ooh, that guy gave me a weird feeling, or that woman she wasn't really, that was sketchy. And you're like, that's that intuitive nature that all those clair abilities support, that we just suppress. But yet we have little, like, I call them little buckets that we'll agree with. Like, oh, I don't really know why, but I turned left today and then I found out there was this horrific accident on the way home. So really glad I followed that gut instinct,
Right.
and so it's dependent on how it's labeled. We can call somebody an alchemist who is able to sort of change their environment. They usually, pharmaceutical, so many different things, but yet that's paganism and witchcraft and
Right.
so
Yeah.
many mislabeled spiritual gifts that I think though we're also in an era where it's being celebrated, where the idea of coming out of the spiritual closet is a real thing. We're
Yeah.
sort of going, hey,
So
let's be weird together. There's something to this.
yeah. So here's a thought for you,
Okay.
is that wonder if what we call the sixth sense
Uh-huh.
is actually the first sense.
I love that. I love that.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
And but it's just been suppressed for so long that we're just like, yeah, that's just kind of leftovers now. It's I was reading an article the other day, and and again, referring back to 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when
Right.
scientists used to call parts of DNA junk DNA. Like, nature doesn't work like that.
No.
So they have a purpose, you just haven't
Mm-hmm.
figured it out, but
Right.
instead you're just going to suppress it and just like, well, we can't figure it out, so we're just going to just call it junk.
Toss it. Yep.
And then we could call that sixth sense, or that first sense, how we want to define it, as your junk sense. Is like, yeah, that's just coincidence, which
Mm-hmm.
neither of us don't believe in.
Mm-hmm.
Coincidences always have a meaning.
Especially in nature.
Oh,
Nature
yeah.
governs itself to create balance, to
Right.
create growth, to return to living. And for us to say that something is junk, I'm like, we're just creating disharmony. We're messing up with the balance. We're killing something because we're not understanding it. But I think if we're going to go down the rabbit hole of like making the sixth sense the first sense, why do you think that we suppress, or why do you think we've throughout history taken out the sixth sense? What do we have to lose? What are we as humanity not experiencing by taking out something so important like an additional sense?
Well, I mean, that's a really good question. And coincidentally, I was just watching a short documentary about genetic memory
Oh, yeah.
and how, animals and humans alike, you know, have, all of these instincts that they, like my dogs. I'll give my dogs are a perfect example is that how do they know to do that? I
Mm-hmm.
didn't teach them.
Mm-hmm.
How do they know to do some of the things that they do? It's just
Mm-hmm.
like I didn't teach them how to do that. So that's that genetic
Yeah, there's
memory
no
that
ant
built.
school to tell them how to build a hill.
Right?
Yeah,
There's no, there's
At
no
least,
graduate with a master's in, beaver dam building. Like
yeah,
that's
right.
just, they just know. It's
they
not,
just know
they just
exactly.
know.
So if they have the just know gene,
Mm-hmm.
we have to have the just know gene because that's
Right.
how nature works. We
Yeah.
are not that much different from any of the species that are on the planet. We really
Right.
aren't. This is
Right.
what makes the biggest difference. And so nature is still saying you need to have this information. I'm going to build it into you, but they're going to just they're the animals instinctively know. But why don't we instinctively know
I
as a,
get,
as a, as an as an entire species,
right.
not just the few people who's just like my grandmother told me or I feel this. Everybody else has just been suppressed. Oh no 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 no.
Right. I mean, I love to think about humans as being an evolved species and then kind of the monkeys of the universe, right? So we're like evolved. We believe that we have, infinite knowledge. But then if we just take the idea that there's more beyond us and there's probably some smarter civilization somewhere out in the multiverse, I'm sure we look like monkeys because we love to suppress, right? To just sort of control the masses in this way of just what is pharmaceuticals? Well, we don't feel good, so we're not really going to fix the problem. We're just going to give you something to numb it. You have a headache, like let's not tune into our bodies. Let's just take a Tylenol or whatever we're going to take, right? Um I obviously my education's in psychology. So we learn
Mhm.
about the mind and how much control the mind has, but we're taught to really limit the mind and put it in a box. Like
Yeah.
other species don't go to school and they don't have a civilization around them that's telling them, don't pick up that piece of leaf that's weighs 400 times more as an ant and start
Right.
carrying it to the nest, right? Like that
Yeah.
doesn't make sense. Or it's like, I'm having a bad day. I'm not going to get up and do anything.
Hmm.
It's almost like the limited knowledge gives them the ability to really tap into their innate senses. And yet we as a human species have all of the possibilities at our fingertips, and we just choose to pigeonhole ourselves
Yeah.
into this linear growth cycle. We're only going to grow where it's safe and just temper everything else. Anything that can't be explained, we just sort of and that's hard. That limits evolution, especially just in our
Totally.
consciousness if we're going to look at it like that. Like
Totally.
Right.
we're only able to learn what's available, and unless people continue to just go, I want to learn beyond the minor constructs of everything that's going on around me, then it's a slow evolution process.
Yeah.
We're waiting,
Yeah.
still
Right.
leaning on all that generational stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's
So
like, and that's even, I mean, if we go even more down the rabbit hole to the even a smaller micro level of, if you think about the mycelial network of the planet,
Ooh, yeah,
right? And the
right.
intelligence of that. You can't find a brain in there. It's like
No,
so are we evolved? Is that our definition of
I don't
evolution?
know. I think
Hmm.
we're kind of not. I hate to say it because we love to believe we're important and that we've got it all
Right?
figured out, but I don't
mm,
know.
exactly.
Realistically,
Mhm.
we prop
So
ourselves up by
What
education and
about your
papers, but I
journey
don't.
then, and how you discovered your unique abilities, and what led you to become a life path intuitive and energy therapist?
Oh, like I said, I had my premortal memories that I really suppressed because I too was born
Yeah.
into sort of a family where it wasn't like, um, celebrated, that you could see grandma in the corner who passed. That wasn't like lifted. But I think that my memories were gifted to me so that I would always have this drive for more. Like I too, like you, Ross, would say, God, there's got to be more to this. There's more. I was always looking for more beyond what my eyes could show me.
Got it.
And I think that it wasn't until I was an adult and I'd really found some massive separation between my authentic self and trying to fit in. You know, in college, you're just like, I just want to be a kid.
Yeah.
I just want to grow up and do something great with my life, like own a business. I don't know, you know, just those things where life calls to you and it's so hard to be the different ugly duckling. You don't want to be the one that's different in your group.
Yeah.
But it got to this head point in my life where I was like, I am empty because nothing about me is authentic. And I'm surrounded by people that don't have any clue about the real things I think about.
Got it.
And so I think that's why I was kind of throwing it to you guys. Like, did you have this pivotal moment? For me, I did. I mean, it was always there whispering, but there was a moment where I could not, I felt like part of me was dying. This undernourished aspect of my soul was just like, please, like, listen to me. There's more for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And that shift happened for me when I was around 13 years old. And, you know, and then just synchronicity gifted an angel in front of me and led me on a path. And, you know, I just never turned back from it, just kept going down that path.
So would you
what
consider
changed?
that? Would you consider that ability, and you when you're where you're not using it, you could kind of use the analogy of a neuron that's not being used. It's just going to shrivel up, and then nature will just wash it away. You know, it seems that's kind of how, you know, I describe this as like, if I don't do something with this, you know, I'm going to shrivel up, and I won't go away physically, but internally, you know, my soul will feel like it's just shriveling up and going away. But I have to. I mean, you have that drive of, I have to do this. I need to do this. I'm supposed to do this. Now, and so when it comes to the birthright codes and such, and you know, and you say that they're embedded in our spiritual DNA.
Yes, they are. Yeah.
Now, do you define this as like a predetermined destiny?
I think it's a compilation. So the birthright codes are this, I would like to say, like our inner template, the things that we are predispositioned to do. Some people are amazing artists. Some people are tall because they were meant for basketball. Like, there's these built-in aspects of ourself with potential, but we live in a free will system, and it's an environment that's living in itself. And so we're interacting with it based on free will. And I mean, I would invite you to imagine somebody who you've met who does have crazy spiritual gifts, is an amazing healer. I've met so many people and they're like, I will never do that. And that's choice. So they are predispositioned for so many birthright life paths.
Right.
And yet it's up to us to be like, I want to chase the one that's uncomfortable but feels most like me. And then there's the other ones who are like, being that uncomfortable, even though I'm predispositioned to become it, is going to tear me apart. And I've met both sides of the coin.
Yeah.
And so I always try to honor people's life path, even though it's hard, because you're like, oh, but you could, you know, but I've seen people really go, I'm gonna chase this, and then they get so uncomfortable when you know, the system starts to fight back and they start to say, no, you're crazy. Or the family system goes, I'm going to disown you if you even entertain the idea of what you want to do. And it's too much. And I've watched people crumble under that sort of like environmental foothold. And so I think the birthright codes are the potential. Like, if we were completely free, we would be, I think, such a different species, but we're not. We're born into a lot of pressure. We're born into a lot of I shoulds instead of I wants. And that plays a part in how much we honor those birthright codes. But I also think, again, to circle back around, we're in an era where more people are going, I can't live without it anymore. And I just want to nourish this this sort of dead neuron that has been just weak and calling out. But the instant you start to give it life, it grows infinitely. It is because it's meant to be. And then all of a sudden that becomes the calling you can't ignore anymore. So it's these birthright codes, I think, are just an interesting idea. It's in my premortal life, everyone had this connection. They called it the halcyon thread. It was this idyllic, like God source creator thread. And you could feel everyone being a part of it. So once one suffered, you could kind of feel the tip and like sadness. But when one was happy, everybody was it was just like this blend and breath of experience. Mm-hmm. And it was amazing. It's comforting. You realize your individual self is part of the collective whole, which is kind of a weird idea for people here. But the birthright codes were part of this Akashic library that I remember. It was part of our, what do you want to do? It was like God source creator being like, I created you, but you also have choice. What do you want to do? And it's like, oh, I love this and I love that. And he goes, like, okay. Or she goes, okay, like, let's give you some of those choices. Let's give you some of those abilities. Go forth and go do something with them. And
so they're like potential portals for reality that you step into?
Yeah, kinda. I like to think of it as like a software system. It's a simple way of saying it. We're born with software, right? It's like our own unique operating system.
Yeah.
And then we can go down the other rabbit hole of timelines and dimensions and realities and, all of us existing on these planes. But I think that all just feeds our template of systems. If I've got me in another density, I've got me in another reality experiencing all this stuff, all it's doing is feeding my operating system. And I'm just, if I'm open to it, it's helping me make the choices in the here and now.
And there's so the crossovers, right? There's the crossovers and the connection points. Yeah.
Like a weaving, the template of everything going on. So the more open we are, the more conscious, driven we are, the more that things start to feel expansive, the more these other realities and these other predispositioned aspects of ourselves come together and blend to something pretty. We start to breathe new life, I guess.
So how does someone tap into or understand their birthright code then? Is there a methodology that you suggest or teach people, or?
Yeah, so it usually starts with, and this is just kind of how it's been birthed, is I didn't even really understand what I was doing. I would just see sacred geometry coming into people, and I would sit down with people and they would start talking. And as they sort of worked through their decision tree, these paths would light up. Nice. And so I didn't know what I was doing. I would just sort of sit with people, and as they worked through their thoughts, I'd pull out questions and then do energetic work on them. So I would say like a Reiki session, for instance. So anybody that can go into meditation, anybody that can go and just silence the mind and start to really tap into that inner voice, the inner knowing, everything we're born with is all in that inner flame. Anybody that can do that can start to cultivate their own birthright codes. It's just really giving a voice back to your inner self, because we're born with everything we need, right? We're born with all of the infinite possibilities within us, plus all the infinite wisdom that we've experienced. It's just about saying, hey, I know you exist, birthright codes, i.e. higher self, whatever that is for you. And I want to give you a chance to express yourself. And then really stilling the mind and starting to listen to those things. And then you realize there's a battle, because throughout the day, you'll go back to doing what you always do. And then you have this new voice being like, but what if we do this instead? And then it's just about how much you honor it. That's about how much you nourish it.
Yeah.
So what do you recommend for people to learn to access those codes?
I think it starts with conscious choosing first and foremost. I realize there's so much power in that. And I have to believe there's so much. That's why maybe the system fights so hard for us to not delve into the what ifs. I think it's really important that it's just, hey, even if I don't believe in the birthright codes, or maybe I don't believe in this birthright template, that I'm open to just figuring out what it is for me and starting with that conscious choosing is, I think, the most important step. We can say we want to do something, but the universe knows, the system knows when we're committed to actually wanting it, when we're committed. It's not just on a surface level, like, I'd love to know if I can fly, versus being like, can I really fly? I want to know if I can really fly. Don't jump off a bridge or anything like that, but just really choosing, right?
Yeah.
And so it starts off with someone's commitment to wanting to know. It's as potent as it is someone's desire to figure it out. And then it kind of unfolds naturally. There's meditations for it. There's all these, crystalline light body, DNA. These are all part of our birthright template. All of that happens. Anytime we're doing anything conscious driven, we're pulling out what we were meant to do.
So then is it like a vibrational
codes
frequency that resonates with you, and then you just kind of, hey, it calls you, so to speak, and because it's matching that frequency, or connected to that frequency, you get a call to, because that's part of your birthright code?
Yes, it's perfect. That's perfect. It's a unique frequency that it's our own genetic makeup. It is we're all born with a unique frequency. Nothing in this universe can be duplicated perfectly, right? There's always down to the micro, there's going to be a difference. So we're uniquely, we already carry our unique frequency. So once you tap into your perfect frequency, which is your most authentic, beautiful self, and that life is built from that place, you start to notice, like, does this align with that frequency? And anything that doesn't sort of dissipates. So as you raise your frequency, you'll notice people falling out of your life. You'll notice these opportunities falling away. And it's hard because we're like, I don't want to let you go, but we don't match anymore. And so that was a perfect example of what these birthright codes can feel like. It's really tapping into that frequency of authenticity, putting down the mind and going, I'm ready to be everything I was born to be. And I am so open to chasing that. And then it just kind of happens naturally. You start to feel what makes sense for you. And these natural doors start to open. I mean, have you ever experienced that when Gary, you talked about, being 13, when you were like, hey, this angel came to me, you still had to choose the next day to honor and live from that place.
Oh, for
Did
sure.
things change for
you?
you?
And angels come in different forms in different ways, and you don't realize them until after the fact, in my opinion, in my experience anyways, right? And just led me in certain directions. And my life circumstances led me to be open at that moment, that time, for that particular thing to happen, and that experience to really alter, and I keep talking about it in a lot of our live streams. That was a absolute standout pivotal point for me.
Right. So do you feel like, so you're in that transition rebirth phase, which often happens in the beginning of a birthright code, when you're like, I'm putting down the old system of everything I've been born into, and now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to embody this new something because I've been awakened to it. Do you feel like your life started to shift? Did things fall away for you?
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, especially at 13, you're going through a lot of other changes too, right? And in that stage, being having to deal with those things of puberty and all that's going on, and at the same time feeling so different from everybody else, just in general, just the way that I thought, just the way that I perceive things, the way that I process stuff was just so different. But it didn't, I never felt it was like I was forced. It was just I couldn't not do it.
Yeah.
Right.
I know you guys both have a rich background in sort of like the corporate world before, you embodied this new life path. Do you feel like you took aspects of that other you that lived in that reality that sort of melded together into this new person you are today? Like, I don't think birthright codes have to be this transformational shift where you let go of everything. I think we are always kind of digging into what we love. We're always kind of chasing things that align with what makes us happy. It doesn't always, end up perfect because we have to do the adulting part of life.
Yeah.
But do you boo, but do you guys feel that, out of curiosity, like, was that a death part of your life, or do you believe that it was like in this rebirth, you just kind of took it with you and then it was
For me, it
expansive?
was
Like,
more of a
what was that?
maturing. Yeah, I didn't really
Okay.
feel a death. It was more of a maturing into, and I think because it happened so early for me, right? I think maybe
Right.
later if I develop more identity, because
Hmm.
I believe that's what the puberty thing, that whole thing is
Right.
figuring out an essence of the identity you're going to hold on to for some length of time. And so because that happened in that transitional stage for me, I think for me it was more of a maturing into and just kept maturing into it, kept maturing into it. And it never really stopped because I took it
Mm.
into every. I've been an entrepreneur from time I was 15 years old. So I've always taken that aspect of into it. And when I did those things, as you're going through, as you call it, the adulting and figuring out how to make, an income and all that kind of stuff,
Right.
there were certain things that I did that were not fully in alignment with my passion, but had, there was some vibration. It was in the vicinity of the frequency, right?
Right. Yeah. In the hemisphere of like,
And,
yeah.
and so the things that were not at the core, those businesses and those ventures and stuff that I did, just they fell by the side. And but there was always this thread, as you talk about, that just kind of was always there and never
Mm.
really went away.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
And in my experience, I mean, I was more in the corporate world, and there was a time when I said, okay, that's that, this is now.
Hmm.
And it just didn't feel good. I didn't care for it.
Mm.
And so I'm like, no, this was part of me. So, and I felt unwhole
Yeah.
is the best way to explain it. And so I
Yeah.
pulled back this thought process that I had grown up with, and said, okay, I just need to adapt it. I don't. It's not, as Gary and I always say, we call it infinity thinking. It's not this or that. It's this and that and that and that and that and that and that.
Yep.
And that I incorporated that into my thinking at the time, and I'm like, God, this is working. But what was the the icing on the cake was that it wasn't just working for me. It was
Uh,
working for the company that I was working for.
oh,
Okay. To where
yeah.
they're like, how are you so, you know, how are you getting things done? You're so productive. Your numbers are the best. You did this and this and this.
Yeah.
And like, I said, I just got and I just at the time just said, I just kind of created my own way of managing things.
Mm.
And many people were same thing, trying to suppress that. It's like, no,
Hmm.
no, that's not how we do it. I'm like, but it's working,
But it's
and
working.
it's working better than your system. So why do you want to put me in your box when my box is so much bigger, so much more expansive, and is providing better results? And my employees were happier, and my customers were happier, and I mean,
Right.
it was just like and. This is so the system. It works. It can be exhausting,
Yeah.
but the exhaustion was to a certain degree worth it,
Hmm.
because it was also very, very fulfilling.
Mm.
And I've seen other people that were in my position, trying to do their own way, and they're trying to control the world, and or as much of the environment as they possibly can. I'm like, well, you know you can't do that. You
No.
can't do it and sustain it. So why don't we work with the environment? Why don't we just make
Hmm.
this more of a whole way of upgrading our operating system? Matter of fact, let's take a Windows and let's blend it with a Mac. This is
Right.
that's going to be the
Whew.
ultimate.
Could you
It's going to
imagine? The world would blow up. That's nuclear.
it
That's nuclear
has
war there,
been nuclear in
friends.
the
Let's
beginning.
not.
Yeah, it's going to be kind of a rough transition, but once we figure out how to make that work, I says,
Hmm.
then you got the best of both worlds. And I don't think at the time I used that analogy, but it's a pretty good one right now. So I'm going to
I
break.
think that is one of the biggest constructs I think of this environment. And you can tell me I'm wrong, but in my premortal life memories, competition was not a thing.
Right.
Right. So it wasn't even, I feel like that's such a human construct that we need to be the only one and first to market, and the idea that what we have needs to be the only one to have it. And
competition. That's like
competition,
destroy them, kill the competition,
right?
and my whole
Well,
philosophy is why can't it just
it's
be a win?
embedded even from an early age, right? Even from an early age, where it's embedded in a fun way of sports. Because what sports is it seems like, I mean, there's an element of a team that happens, but you're creating a team to be separate from another team, or a city to be separate from another city, or people to be separate from another.
You still want to be
and you're
MVP of your team,
right? Yeah.
but how different would our world be, even just from like an owning yourself perspective? Then once you figured something out, that you would get excited to share that with others and teach them how to do it. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I think society is getting there.
I think so too.
I look at some of the troubles and the turmoils that we as a species on this planet, a lot of the things that we're going through right now is that kind of that other side fighting to survive. It's like they're backed into a corner and they're just like, no, I will not conform to, I will not be open to new ideas. It has to be my way. It has to be this way. And I will destroy you. I will destroy you.
Yes.
Most of us are going, I'm really sorry, but, I still love you.
I am here for you, friend, but no.
Yeah. And so I see, that's how I see it. I see that that you have this anger that we're seeing right now, and they're just trying to survive. They're trying to have their way of life survive as they know it, and they don't want to evolve in any way.
Right.
And
but that's my thought.
Yeah, it's and as corny as it sounds, it's kind of like oh, what's the dang movie? One of my kids' movies she watches, Trolls. So in one of the last Trolls movies, it's my music is the best, and it's rock and roll, and so rock and roll wants to take over all this, and then at the end they realize that, hey, all music is great. We can work together. Everybody enjoys it all.
2.5 hours to figure that out. Yeah, like, geez, it is, guys. Kenny G deserves a space. Yes, right? Absolutely. But I mean, I feel like, to take that like a little bit further beyond the competition, it's almost like when we feel like we've grabbed on to truth, like we have something that we believe so hard, and that's like this new block for humanity, because now we got to defend it. We got to defend our religious, spiritual, family, whatever belief, to the point that we can't consider someone else's perspective. And again, in the premortal life, they're seeing someone else through their eyes is liquid gold. It's like, I don't have to do the hard work of experiencing life, but if I can listen and open my heart to you, I can definitely take in your life experiences and incorporate that into mine. And like, we are conditioned at such a young age, or at least I was in my family system, that if we let go of who we are to embody somebody else's perspective, it was like the world was ending because you were abandoning yourself and you need to know who you are. And I'm like, but I feel like I know who I am when I sit with others. I feel like I get a better understanding of what I want to be when I get to sit with others, and not from a judgmental place, but from an empathy, understanding place. Like, wow, that must have been difficult. Just the open, expansive idea that we can incorporate somebody else's beliefs. Like, that's just not our society. We have to fight someone else to have our voice heard.
Yeah.
And it just limits us. I mean, half the time, the right answer is in the middle of what we're both thinking. And it's, I mean, some of these, that's why I don't like get involved in some of like
that space of compromise.
Yeah, that's where magic happens, I believe. Right? Yeah. It's like it's a respect that occurs, and then frequency raises because you've done something wonderful, which is create space and respect for somebody else, and they do the same for you, and it's a symbiosis of raising your vibration. People leave feeling heard and seen and connected, and it's beautiful. Versus right now, I mean, like the idea that we would live in our birthright codes or that we would choose our own divine purpose is so hard. Because even after you do, what if your divine purpose is to help others? What if your divine purpose is to take your gifts and teach others? But, you know, we're conditioned to be like, no, we got to be super unique in what we do because that's how we're going to make it in this world.
Yeah.
Why would we want to go teach others? And it's not that way.
Let me look at the other side of the coin on that. Wonder if somebody believes that their birthright code is to be a warmonger.
Mm.
Is it always for love and light?
I don't think so. You have to have both, right? I don't know.
Because how else would we have the contrast? And we talk about this all the time. How else would we have the contrast to know that what we're experiencing is the preference, right? And you know, I talk about it in a bunch of live streams. Is like, in order for you to feel love, there has to be a part of you has to also know the same degree of hate to have the contrast to know you're feeling that level of love. It's 100%. Just that what you're focusing on or what you're choosing to the experience and bring into manifestation is that side of the equation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right?
I think we don't
so
like
it doesn't
feeling
make it right or
uncomfortable.
wrong. It's just what it is, and you're playing your role based on what your soul, we believe, and it was what your soul brings into to contribute to the evolution of us all.
Right. There's a gentleman that I follow in Gaia. He is Matthias De Stefano. He talks about the duality of like the yin and the yang. And he really speaks about it. He goes, the first density idea is very black and white, right and wrong, good and bad, you know?
Yeah.
And he goes, as you raise your consciousness, he's like, the only way to really grow is to have a respect that it's just a different way of doing things. You know, obviously this doesn't condone taking of life or doing, you know, the hard things that are not good for humanity. But it's that black and white is someone's natural state of being. And that's okay. But it's also birthed from, I think growth doesn't occur unless we're in a state of rebirth, and rebirth is usually meaning something's died. We're going through something hard. I think, you know, walking in darkness.
You know, but
we talk about
about that yin and yang though is that each side has a piece of the other side in it.
Yes. We always forget that part. The little
we do. Mm-hmm. And so that means that somewhere on each of those sides, that other side had to compromise and allow the other side to live within it.
Yeah.
No matter what.
And then the other piece of that where we try to say is that it's not necessarily and because we're in, I mean, the yin yang, we see it as a two-dimensional object, right? So there's limitations in the metaphor in that way, I think. And when you take it out of that realm, well, if you look at it from that realm, then what it represents is and our conscious minds can only conceive that as a representation of balance. We don't really believe in balance. I think that what we need to be is slightly off balance, because if balance means there's no growth, there's neutrality, there's no evolution, there's nothing happening. What we want you to be slightly off balance, but more in the direction of evolution and growth instead of just balance.
Ooh, you know how uncomfortable that would make the majority of humans?
We talk it all the time. I know it makes people uncomfortable. I know it.
I love watching people get itchy when I'm like, but you know, because we cling to whatever is going to stabilize our environment.
I know everybody's looking for balance. No, you don't want balance. Forget it. Balance is a boring, nothing happening, no evolution. You get bored, silly, and what it leads to, if you're stuck with that, what it leads to is entropy, because you can't sustain it.
Yep. That's that.
You know, and we can take that on an evolutionary scale, because each time and each segment of history as where the species has advanced was when they were in the most chaotic of a state. They were completely out of balance, and so they had to push harder on themselves and be better people and such to get past that, and then and then evolve
Ooh.
spiritually, evolve mentally. And I guess to a certain degree, there's some physical evolution there as well. But regardless, though, it pushed everybody. And what we see now is that, we kind of created a habit as a species that we won't take action until the pain is too great.
100%.
Then we'll move forward.
Yep.
And at
Yep.
what price that comes, especially in today's society, that's a good question. But we know back in early ancient times, it meant that a lot of people died. So now it's just a matter of they might not be able to get the next iPhone, or they might not, they might the nicest car, or they might be inconvenienced a little bit. It's like, good, that
Yeah.
pain's good for you. That pain's going to cause you to
Yeah.
push forward, and it's
Yeah.
actually going to cause some great inventor out there who's had these ideas for all this time, but everybody kept suppressing them and such. And just say, here, now will you listen to me?
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, I guess we have to. The pain's too great. Will that make our pain go away? Yeah, then I guess we have to listen to it. At least listen better, more harder, and like, okay, let's take action on this.
I think I'd like to amend my original statement when I said the seed point of innocence is an ideal way of living. I'm going to go ahead and say it's an ideal way of embracing change.
Nice.
That you are able to embrace change. That means that you've found a way to feel excited about the uncomfortable. That means that you are excited about probably something hard coming up on the horizon, which is a change, a job change, an instability of sorts, right? Because I think everything we really want is on the other side of change.
Wouldn't that be when the seed germinates? It's got to come somewhere. It can't always stay a seed.
Yeah. It's like that moment of like inception, you're born with the yes. You don't fear change at that point. You're just like, steamroll ahead. I can't wait to find out. And I think that just for humans slows down so much when we experience heartache or trauma or all those things that make change scary. And it's not that
one of the critical things that I learned when I was through my NLP journey, neuro-linguistic programming journey and trainings, one of my teachers said that, we tend to nominalize things so much and make,
yeah, we do.
And if you do that, then when we look at it, that, we can say that all we are is change, which nominalizes it, right?
Right.
But then if we denominalize it, all we are is changing, which is like,
ooh.
If you take the ambiguity of all of that and the literal of that phrase, to me it just blew my mind. I'm like, oh my goodness, that's so bang on.
Yeah, it's like taking two-dimensional thinking and being like, hold on, let me flip it on its axis. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna look at this from every direction. Like, this isn't just change, it's changing.
All we are is changing, and it's like, oh, it just, yeah.
See, but that makes my heart a little uncomfortable for a second. I'm like, oh, that's such a big thought, and that can go in so many ways, and I gotta like suppress it real quick, and then embrace it, and then I'll let go.
Explore it.
It's like this whole inner little.
Yeah, it's a fun ride when you explore it. We explore it all the time. It's a fun ride.
You guys must get stuck just in these like conversations that explode off topics. I can imagine. It's awesome.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we've recorded some of our brainstorm sessions, and people are like, you guys, that's chaos. I'm like, yeah, that's it. Then that's where it all comes from. That's where everything we do comes from. It comes from our initial chaos of an idea, and then an idea on top of that idea, and an idea on top of that idea, because neither one of us, when we're doing it, is married to our idea.
See, that's that embracing of
result.
Yeah.
So this get us the end result. Well, let's take that away from it, and let's maybe take that away from it. Let's try that. Nope, let's put that one back, or grab something different and put all this together, and take that and relatively organize the chaos, but it's still kind of chaos inside each piece, and then it becomes something that we created.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of fun. A lot of people can't handle that type of thinking because it's like rapid fire.
It is
You know,
chaos,
I'll
too
Gary,
much.
Gary sometimes will just close his eyes and just, you know, you can't write, you can't type fast enough. It's just like, like, okay, let me take that and let me step back for a second and make sure that I'm understanding what's coming out. He goes, I don't even know what I said. What are you talking about? It's like, well, that's why we record it.
Right.
But that's
See, but that's an amazing think tank. That's an amazing way to exist in your life. When you give yourself space to go into your world with others or other things that are occurring, your environment, whatever experiences, and you just almost word vomit your heart and you just let it be. And it just, from it comes so much excitement. There's so much to be learned from chaos. I mean, isn't that how our universe was created, from a total amount of chaos and explosion and nuttiness? And then somehow miraculously it reorganized itself into these cool things we call planets and all the rest of the stuff we don't understand.
It was just luck.
Yeah, one of the things
there's no order.
we to a lot of people that the world is a storm. It's in a constant state of being a storm. And what we do is we look at the chaos, we revel in the chaos, but we're doing it in the eye of the storm.
I love that.
We're always very, very calm, but we're still seeing it. And then I can say, well, that's interesting. And then grab that and bring it in and examine it. And say, guys, what do you think about this? What if we did this and this? Like, no, it's not going to work. Put it back in the storm, grab another piece and such and work. And you, when you live life like that and such, then any chaos that happens in your life, you see it only as an observer.
Yeah.
And then you can, without being emotional about it, you can kind of pick it out and just like look at it, examine it and say, well, we can fix this if you want, or just let it go.
Throw it back into the chaos. Yeah.
Things that we teach a lot of our students, and once they get it and once they start incorporating in their lives, you can visually see them they're always calmer now.
Yeah.
It's just much more calm, a little bit more in control, and they're just like, I feel so much better. I don't have that.
They're more in the moment. They're more present, right? And that's ultimately where we want to get to.
Yeah.
So tell us about the Ascension Institute. I want to hear a little bit about that and kind of how that came about, what it is, that whole birth child of yours.
The Ascension Institute came from me learning that competition is not our natural state. And so I knew I was always meant to do more than just readings. I didn't feel like I was making enough of a difference in my own life and for others. And, it felt like half empty. People would come and then we would do these readings. They want to know about their starseed beliefs or their Akashic and all of this other stuff. But so many people would have this awakened experience and they're like, hey, I've never told anybody this, but I think I can do some of these things. And so I started to evolve into being a coach. And I really had kind of a coming to, like, I just want to meet people where they are and wherever they're at in their spiritual journey. And I want to help you feel like you have a safe place to explode all of your opportunities and then figure it out and what aligns for you. And so that's where the Ascension Institute was really birthed from. When I realized, like, I don't want to approach my life as competition, but I also know that it's you can't exist without, drive and passion and all of that you can't just be part of the one and live in Om, but that this passion of mine could be driven on this idea that other people could grow as well. And so that's where the Institute came from, is people were craving, how do I start this process within myself without having a revolutionary moment in my life, like maybe, you guys have, or I did when we were alone. I didn't have anybody holding my hand. Nope. And so I really sat with myself and I really tried to delve into my own memories about, what would I have needed from a mentor or a friend when I was calling out because I didn't understand what I was seeing, feeling, and thinking. And that's what I think the basis of this Ascension Institute is, which is why I talk about the seed point. It's helping people get back to sort of deconstructing their environment so they can reconstruct potential. They can it's amazing what some of these people's gifts are. I had a girl who believed she was a witch. She could alchemize water. And so she would just change her frequency and she'd hold the water in the beginning. And at the end of it, it tasted like something different. I was like, how did you do that? And she's just like, I don't know, And I was like,
Nice.
you're not a witch, but you just did something really cool because that tastes like pine trees. And it was
Mm.
not pine trees when we started. So,
that's
she just,
nice.
she's a healer of some sort, but it was about her putting down the idea that she had to be like a medium or that she had to see angels. I mean, she just sat and goes, I really love this about my life. And I loved this. And I always wanted to do this. And I said, okay, let's just work on some things that you've experienced and let's try some things out. And it was just this quantum evolving of her understanding. And that's what the Ascension Institute is.
Is that
So
is
if
that
Go
your primary clientele, or people who are trying to find themselves and learn how
Yeah.
to utilize
So how does someone get it? Like, how does the viewer, get involved in that, or find out more about that?
So you can go to the ascensioninstitute.com and I have all of my services listed.
Right.
One service is called Ascension Coaching. I like to call it the bucket of I'm not providing a service they specifically need. So it's always just about meeting the client where they're at. Because some people will say, I need a reading first. I feel like I have some blocks, or I want to go into my own personal Akashic library. It's a really, really customized like service. And then I have my other cookie cutter ones. Like I started out as a medium. I think that's just really how I started to develop my own intuitive muscle and helping people find peace with knowing their loved ones are okay. But then there was a greater calling in me. And so my services have evolved, but you can always just go to the Ascension Institute. And then there's a little box once you book a service that just says, hey, this is kind of what I'm looking for. And we grow from there.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. It's been a wild ride. It's been fun to meet some people who are in the center of their chaos.
I'm sure also it's going to be, it's got to be a relief for a lot of people too that are feeling totally lost and kind of dejected by society. I mean, I get, I'm not sure about Gary, but I know I get a lot of people sending me, messages and emails that, they're an empath and, like, I don't know what to do with this. I
don't know what
can't
to do.
the world. And I'm like, well, that's not my specialty. So it'd be nice to have somebody else that I can send them to listen. You need to talk to the person who knows how to do this.
Thanks, you guys. Yeah.
So, I mean, because there's people out there, they're hurting. And, and it's only because they're confused or they're trying to conform. And, they can conform for a little bit, but it just doesn't hold because, as we spoke earlier, they're just so unhappy.
Right. Right.
And we need more people to bring their authentic self to the table, right? And we talk about that in all the work we do. And our acronym, just for self, is spiritually evolving life force. And so they need to bring that to the table at all times, right? And live from that place, right?
Could you imagine the way humanity would expand if we all
I do. I imagine it all the time, actually.
instead?
Yes. I know.
I get chills, like
I know.
excited.
Yeah.
We can.
Absolutely.
And so we have a very large goal that, I mean, we already have a global reach, but we want to, we don't want to be just, I mean, Gary's in Canada, I'm in the US, but we have clients in Malaysia and Australia and Portugal and just across the globe, which is awesome. And we want to turn each one of those clients into somebody who's going to spread this information and this the idea that, listen, you're not alone. There's ways to deal with this, and there's more people on your side than you think are against you.
Yes.
And that brings a lot of relief. I mean, we've seen people have some incredible breakthroughs right in front of us. We're just like, whoa, and just like, really? Really? I was like, yeah, really. And sometimes that's all it is. So we're going to give you permission to be yourself. And these are people who are, aged. They're well into their adulthood. And they're just like, finally, somebody has given you permission.
The majority of my clients started out in their 50s.
Wow.
Women being like, hey,
Yeah.
I think I like healing. I'm like, oh, that's great. What does that mean to you? I think I like, I would bake and it makes people feel good, but I've always just thought about, essential oils. It's just the
Yeah, yeah.
smallest things of somebody being like, that's amazing. What does that
Yeah.
mean for you? And then it just trickles out, just somebody being a cheerleader for whatever you actually get excited about. I mean, and then delving into the more,
Well, I mean,
but
if you're like us, we call it, when people have these breakthroughs, I mean, that's like jet fuel for us.
right.
It just makes
Yes.
keep wanting to go and keep doing more and more and more. Um,
Once you know, you can't unknow. I love that idea. You really
yeah,
can't. It's like Pandora's box, right?
that's
Once
it.
you know.
Okay, so look, that was the fastest hour ever. And so it's been an absolute honor having you here. And
You
we've got
guys
all of
are
your information. So we'll be using all that information to let people know, what you want to do. I'll actually send you a copy of the interview once it gets posted.
cool.
And
I'd love to post it to social media. That'd be awesome.
fantastic. We
Yeah,
greatly
you guys are
appreciate it.
amazing. I love your expansive conversation. You guys are, I could do it all day. You guys are wonderful. Really, really, really cool.
Well,
Thanks.
I got all day.
It's my favorite talking with people who've thought about it all. And you guys have definitely thought about it all. So I'll give you that. My gosh.
All
Thank
right.
you so
Yeah.
much for having me. It was such a pleasure to meet both of you. And
Me
And
too.
we put this out to everybody as well. Is that if you've got something special coming up, you have a book launch or a
I
big event,
do
or like,
soon. Yeah.
get in
Gail.
touch. You got my email. Get in touch with us,
Thanks, you
and
guys.
and we'll do a special show just for that. So
Fun.
we're here for you.
Cool. You guys, thank you so much. Honestly, you're gonna go off and I definitely feel like you're gonna conquer the world. So I'll keep you posted, but send me fun
Awesome.
things too, because I think I'm a little addicted to your show. So
Ah,
we'll be in touch, I'm sure.
All right, for sure.
Thanks you guys so much again.
Okay. Bye-bye. Be
Bye.
well.